Rain falls softly. The sound of a baby crying echoes through an empty cafe. You can almost smell the aroma of the coffee and the raindrops, landing on a young black waitress standing there, paralyzed, her eyes full of silent compassion. It was supposed to be an ordinary morning in New Orleans. Coffee, rain, and silence. But when a millionaire walked into that cafe, drenched and desperate, holding a crying baby he couldn't comfort, something extraordinary happened. Because sometimes, the universe doesn't send angels with wings. It sends them with aprons, tired hands, and hearts that remember what love sounds like. What began as a moment of kindness would soon unravel a secret pain and awaken two souls who had forgotten how to feel. By the end of this story, you'll understand that the greatest miracles don't happen in hospitals or boardrooms, but in the arms of someone who simply dares to care. Welcome to Golden Tales. If you believe that dignity has no uniform and love has no walls, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay until the end, because this story might just heal something inside you too. Rain fell over the French Quarter in New Orleans, turning the cobblestones into mirrors of light. Inside a small cafe, Naomi Brooks, 27, moved quietly between the tables. Her uniform was worn, her hair pulled back, but her calm presence filled the space. There was gentleness in the way she wiped each table, as if she were smoothing out the wrinkles of her own past. The door opened. A man entered, tall and soaked from the rain, holding a crying baby. He looked around helplessly. The customers avoided his eyes, pretending not to notice. The crying grew louder. Naomi stepped forward. "You look like you could use a hand," she said softly. "I've tried everything," he answered. "He just won't stop." "May I?" He hesitated, then nodded. Naomi reached for the child, held him against her chest, and began to sway slowly. Within seconds, the crying stopped. The baby sighed, relaxed, and clung to her apron. Ethan Grant, the man in the charcoal coat, watched in silence. He had spent months trying to balance schedules, profits, and losses, but nothing had prepared him for the power of a stranger's touch. When Naomi handed the baby back, Ethan's voice trembled slightly. "How did you do that?" "Sometimes they just need to feel peace," she said. He placed a sleek black business card on the counter before leaving. "If you ever need anything, call me." She smiled faintly but didn't reply. When the door closed, she looked at the card. Ethan Grant, CEO, Grant Innovations. That night, Naomi returned to her small apartment above a laundromat. She boiled water for tea, lit a candle, and opened a small wooden box. Inside lay a baby's hospital bracelet. Isaiah Brooks, her son. 6 days of life. A heart too fragile to survive. She held the bracelet tightly, whispering, "I felt you today, my love. I felt you in that child." 2 days later, Ethan came back to the cafe. "I came to thank you," he said, "and to ask something unusual. My son only calms when he hears the song you sang. Would you consider helping me with him?" Naomi smiled. "That song isn't on any playlist." He looked tired but hopeful. "I'll pay you well." "I'm not sure it's about money," she replied. But that evening, she found herself reading his name again on the card. When Naomi stepped into the penthouse for the first time, the silence felt heavy. The walls were glass, the floors marble, the air too still. Micah sat among expensive toys, staring at nothing. Naomi knelt beside him. "Let's make a little noise, sweetheart." Within minutes, laughter echoed through the room. The baby clapped, Naomi smiled, and Ethan, watching from the doorway, felt something stir inside him. Days turned into weeks. Naomi arrived 3 times a week. She fed Micah, sang to him, told stories about the old jazz musicians her father once played with. Ethan began waiting for those afternoons. He'd bring coffee for her, ask about her past, about Treme, where she grew up surrounded by brass bands and Sunday markets. One evening, She stayed after Micah had fallen asleep. The city lights reflected on the glass behind them. "I lost a baby once," she said quietly. "His name was Isaiah. He lived 6 days." Ethan said nothing. She went on. "After that, I stopped singing. I thought music had died with him." He looked at her, eyes heavy. "I lost someone too. My wife, Emily, during childbirth." Their grief met silently, not to be compared, but to be understood. As time passed, Micah began to call her Mimi. The word carried a kind of peace Ethan hadn't felt in years. But peace rarely lasts. One morning, Naomi found her own face online, beside headlines she never imagined reading. Tech billionaire and his mysterious nanny. Scandal in New Orleans. Photographs of her holding Micah at the park were everywhere. The comments were cruel. At the cafe, her manager whispered, "You should take some time off, Naomi." Reporters called here this morning. Her phone rang. "Ethan, I'm going to fix this," he said. "You can't fix people's judgment," she answered. "I knew this day would come." She hung up before her tears fell. That evening, Naomi went to his apartment. Ethan was waiting, his eyes pleading. "You don't have to leave," he said. "I do. I told you I didn't belong in this world. That world doesn't mean anything without you." She placed the key on the table. "What you feel is gratitude, Ethan. Don't confuse it with love." Micah started crying. Naomi lifted him, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "You were my little piece of heaven." Then she handed him back and left. The sound of the closing door stayed in Ethan's ears long after she was gone. Days passed. Micah wouldn't eat or sleep. Ethan walked the halls at night, rocking him, whispering, "I've got you, buddy." But nothing worked. The penthouse felt emptier than ever. One night, he opened the security footage. On the screen, Naomi played peekaboo with Micah, laughing. Her joy filled the silence. He watched every clip, unable to stop the tears. She was the light, he thought. He went back to the cafe. The new barista shook her head. She moved uptown. Don't know where. He searched everywhere until he found an old coworker who gave him an address in Treme. He left a package at her door. Inside was a photo of Micah holding a paper sign in crooked letters. "Miss Naomi, I love you." With it, a note. "If there's still a little faith left in you, come to Audubon Park on Friday at 4. Not to work, to start again." Friday afternoon arrived. Naomi stood at the park entrance, uncertain. The air was warm, the sun soft through the trees. Across the lake, she saw Ethan sitting on a bench beside the stroller. She walked slowly toward him. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I didn't think I should. And yet you did." He looked at her for a long moment. "I spent years building walls. You never tried to tear them down. You just waited outside." "I built walls too," she said. "I thought loving meant losing. But silence without love hurts worse. I don't want a nanny, Naomi. I want a partner." She gave a shaky laugh. "That's crazy. Then let's be crazy together. It's New Orleans, madness built this city." She looked at him, then at the child stirring in the stroller. She took his hand. Micah reached toward her, smiling. And just like that, everything felt right again. Months later, a small cafe opened on Esplanade Avenue. The sign above the door read Isaiah's Corner, Cafe and Books. Inside, the smell of coffee mixed with laughter and old jazz vinyl. Naomi arranged pastries behind the counter, while Micah colored in a notebook and Ethan adjusted flowers by the window. "It looks beautiful," she said. "Just like you," he answered. Her first book rested on a nearby shelf, The Child Who Listened to Rain. On the first page, "For Isaiah, who taught me to sing again. For Micah, who taught me to love again. And for Ethan, who taught me to live." At the launch, the bookstore filled with friends, families, and neighbors. Naomi stood before them, calm and radiant. "This story began on an ordinary rainy morning," she said. when someone simply chose to hold a crying child. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, with patience, warmth, and a heartbeat that says, "You're safe." After the reading, Ethan waited in the garden behind the cafe, under hanging lights. He took her hand, then knelt. "You gave me back my life, Naomi. You showed me what home feels like." Tears filled her eyes. "Ethan, home is where the heart finally rests," he said. "And mine only rests with you." Micah ran over, holding a toy ring. "Mama know me. Mary." Naomi laughed, scooped him up, and said yes, over and over. A year later, the three of them walked by the river as the sun set over the Mississippi. Micah ran ahead, chasing ducks, laughter carrying on the breeze. Naomi and Ethan followed hand in hand, quiet and content. Love had found them on a rainy morning. It had healed what the world had broken, and it had taught them that some miracles don't happen in heaven. They happen right here when one heart decides to listen to another.